Welcome back, everyone, to the Clarity Corner. We have a very special guest with us today, a personal friend of mine, done business together for quite some time with real estate, and a resource for us at the firm with anything real estate in this area, in Delmarva, really. And that's Ryan Haley with Atlantic Shores Realty, and as of 2020, Sotheby's International.
That's correct. Yeah. Atlantic Shores Sotheby's International Realty.
I was thinking about that before you came over, that that merger happened, an event happened at probably the worst possible time it could, February of 2020, as COVID was shutting down everything.
Yep.
But turned out incredibly well. Changed the real estate industry, really, didn't it, in terms of how people view properties online and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been, it's always good to reflect and, we obviously do it annually when we look at our date as to when we launched. Our anniversary just happened here. We're the 24th of February. We launched as Atlantic Shores Sotheby's International Realty. So we were able to acquire a franchise from Sotheby's. And so we launched in February 2024. And so here it is 6 years. And like you said, going into, I guess, March 14th, like St. Patrick's Day weekend of 2020 was when the world changed, right? And, real estate was definitely affected, and like every other industry, there's been a lot of changes. But yeah, 6 years ago now was when that happened.
Goes quick.
It does.
So one of the reasons I love having you on the podcast and as an asset for our firm and resource is Ryan's knowledge on the real estate market in Ocean City has impressed me since the very first time I met you. When we were looking for commercial space, we found here in 2011, you helped us out with that.
That goes quick too. That was a long time.
Right? It's
been flew by.
Years. But I could name a condo, and it always impressed me. I could name a condo in Ocean City, the floor or room number, unit number. You could tell me the square footage, the layout, just about anywhere here. So knowledge of the market has always been something very important to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was out of necessity. When I first got into business, so we obviously launched in 2020 as Atlantic Shores Sotheby's, but I mean, my career started when I was 22 years old, back in 2002. And, but kind of being a come here, like I didn't know a lot of people who wanted to be, to buy or sell. So the thing I took it upon myself to really try to figure out early on was the market. And literally, I guess I didn't have a whole lot of people to talk to, but I could go on the MLS and just start searching and looking at properties, and got to the point where I just wanted to know as much as I possibly could about, at the time, it was more the Ocean City condos. Like you said, I just would study them. Somebody show me a picture of it. I'd be like, well, that's 56th Street, it's Ocean Block, it's a third story walk up. And I just kind of remembered that stuff. And some of it stuck, I'm not as sharp as I once, was, because, I've got clients to talk to,
Right.
Where back then it was just the computer and myself. But yeah, I mean, I think, if there's one thing that I've been pretty good at over the years is really trying to figure out what's going on with the market, and you mentioned Delmarva. We service everything from Ocean City inland to, Salisbury down into Somerset County to the Virginia line up and to almost Dover, on the Delaware side. So it's a big area to kind of try to figure out. But yeah, that's what we do every day. We wake up and we try to figure out what's going on with the market so we can educate our clients.
Right. Well, as you know, we're big believers in real estate in a client's portfolio, if net worth necessitates and goals and things of that nature. And we get that question a lot. Hey, I want to buy a rental property, or what do you think about buying this house? Can we afford it? Tell me about the area. So having you as a resource for that is invaluable for our clients. One of the questions we often get is, well, where should we buy for the best rental potential, let's say? So can you hit on for us now kind of where the market sits in the Ocean City area in terms of everything, condos, rentals, single family, things like that? How is the market out there?
Yeah. Well, I always say it's moving. The market, there's always movement in the market, right? And, for us to really know where things are today, I think we have to look at the history a little bit. And specifically, if we take the timestamp of February 2020 and the start of COVID and fast forward to today, we've seen a wild ride to some extent. We saw Actually, I'm going to go back even further real quick. If we start, like, say, 2010 through 2020, we had this very easy run up. The market was improving as far as number of transactions. Interest rates were pretty steady, attractive to a purchaser. Prices were increasing during that time, but very kind of slowly, calculated. And then in 2020, things just changed. I mean, we saw this big slowdown when the world shut down, and then everything came boomeranging back, and we saw great appreciation for 2020, 2021, and the first half of 2022. And since 2022, the market, as far as transactions goes, we've actually been in a bit of a real estate recession. The number of transactions that close on an annual basis since June of 2022 have been going down to the point where, here at the beginning of 2026, or actually the end of 2025, we saw just under 4 million resale home sales in the United States, which is the lowest level going back to the 90s, right? But during that period of time, prices had kind of continued to rise. Fast forward to today, and specific, not just nationally, but specific to Ocean City, what we have seen is there's opportunities for the first time in a long time. There's more on the market today, so there's a little bit more to choose from. Interest rates have definitely gotten to a more attractive level. I mean, last week, before we got together, we talked about the fact of rates going under 6% on the 30-year, which is great news. And we've seen some sellers who are willing to negotiate. So the landscape in Ocean City right now, as we enter the spring of 2026, is I call it opportunity. We actually have, it's more affordable today to purchase a property than it was in almost 3 years, when you combine in the ability to negotiate, where prices currently sit, and interest rates. So there's certainly some really good opportunities as we are entering the spring of 2026.
Well, that's great news to hear. And, if you take out really, let's say that 2010 to 2022, 23, an abnormally strange time of compressed or held down interest rates at like 2.9 or 2.75 on a 30-year, which is just crazy. 5 and 6% is still relatively low in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
I mean, even up to the late 90s, 30-year was at 9%. Go back even further to the 80s, and they're looking at, I can hear my parents right now saying, well, first mortgage was at 15%. So at 5, 6, we're still not too bad, I feel, overall, in that arena. So when you say that, sellers are willing to negotiate, is that on every type of property?
No. There's certainly, this past week, I just got to have a team meeting with our team and talking about negotiation strategies and what to do in a multiple offer situation. And because in the past week, we've had multiple offer situations. But not every property is seeing that. Uniquely coming off a winter where it's been cold like this, we've had some properties that have been on the market 100, 200 days. And then all of a sudden you get a good sunny weekend and, there's multiple people that like that property. And part of that's just pent up demand. Others, the one I had most recently up in the Delaware market in Ocean View, that's a primary residence, a really clean property, not too far from the beach. And it came on at an energy price, something that got the energy, got the excitement of the buyers. The sellers were smart, and it caused a multiple offer situation. So it's not across the board that we're seeing straight up opportunities necessarily where you can really negotiate. But in general, I will say that, there's more room to negotiate, not just on the purchase price, but then as we go under contract and there's a home inspection completed, there's more negotiations in our average sales right now than what we saw a couple of years ago.
Okay. So let's take a look at your buyer profile. Mm-hmm. Has that changed over the last 5, 10 years of who's buying? I would say, let's take this second home market or condo market or rental or beach home. Has that buyer profile changed geographically, economically, anything of that nature?
Great questions. Geographic is probably some slight change. We see a little bit more influence coming from New Jersey, New York, especially into the Delaware, beach market where people are kind of escaping some higher taxes. So that has definitely changed or became more frequent over the last 6 years. I still, that my wife will tell you, Christy, who you know well, will tell you that the client that I've probably worked with the most and have worked well with over the years is somebody who, is at a point where they worked really hard, in their career. They've put some money away, and now they've got this ability to actually go after the dream they've always had of owning a second home, right? Maybe the kids are getting a little bit older. They're either, in college or just graduated from college, and they start to think of, what's it going to look like when we have grandkids? And those folks have continued to buy this whole time, because they've gotten to a certain point in their life where they just feel more comfortable. And those folks are certainly, I think, taking advantage of the opportunities to buy a second home, right? To your point, we have seen an investment push that has come into play. Ocean City has always been a second home market. There's always been rental opportunities where you could, you buy a property. First and foremost, you like it for yourself, but secondly, you buy it with the idea that you can rent it out and help pay for some of those costs, right? Some of the cost of ownership. Maybe it pays for the condo fees, it pays for the taxes, and part of the debt service. We've always, seen that, and then you play the appreciation over enough time; it goes up in value. But with opportunity. In the last year, one of the big changes happened with Trump's big beautiful bill and bringing back some tax advantages to short-term rental purchases. So essentially, if you are buying a short-term rental, which Ocean City has a lot of, and this came out in the middle of last year when the bill was passed, you had the ability to do some accelerated depreciation, to buy it as a second home, rent it out, and then do a cost segregation on it and do some accelerated depreciation. So as we approached the end of last year, we saw some more of that come into play, some more investors coming back into the market, not necessarily because prices had gotten better or negotiation had gotten better, but rather they were really trying to take advantage of some tax benefits that had come back.
Where did you see that most in the market in terms of investment? Condos?
Yeah. Second home condos, because people would love to do it with single family homes, but we've had some back and forth when it comes to restrictions on single family homes. The benefit there is you don't have condo fees, you don't have HOA fees necessarily, but to answer your question, we've seen more people doing that with condos locally.
So everyone's probably seen that in the news. There's a big short-term rental debate in parts of Ocean City, all of Ocean City. Tell me about that.
Great question.
Where do we sit on that, and what restrictions are there currently?
Great question. It has been in the news. I think there's been all kinds of information that has gotten out there. But Ocean City, I guess going back just over a year ago, I would say 14 months ago, January of 2025, the town council voted to put in restrictions on short-term rentals. So you're anything less than 30 days, essentially. They put restrictions on short-term rentals in the R1 district as well as the mobile home district, specifically on the island in Ocean City, right? So that's your single-family homes in most cases on the bay side, and mobile homes. So like Montego Bay and some of those mobile home communities, they put in restrictions that would limit your ability to do a short-term rental.
Now, so if hearing that on the surface, it's like, okay, they're not allowing me to do what I want to do with this property. But what is their train of thought there on limiting that? What is the advantage of that, let's say?
I think the people that voted for this, the idea was that they were going to try to improve the quality of life for the neighbors in those bayside residential communities, areas where people are living more year-round, to not have a short-term rental, Airbnb situation. Right. Yeah. You got people coming and going. They're here to have fun because they're on vacation. So there could be noise situation with that. But so that was what they were going to limit it. They ultimately, that did pass. So there was going to be some changes that would not allow short-term rentals. They would have to be 30 days in length. And they also put a moratorium on the issuance of rental licenses. So if you did not have a rental license, you were not getting one last year. So a lot of these single-family homeowners and mobile home people did not have the ability to get a short-term rental license last year and could not do it.
And that's still in effect.
So we've had some changes. That came out. That was passed in January of 2025. Midsummer last year, there was a referendum. There was the people spoke up. There were signatures that allowed that to go to referendum. I believe it was July of 2025, and that passed. So well, the referendum took place, and essentially the restrictions on short-term rentals were overturned, specifically on the length of stay. So that was the people, the voters spoke up, overturned the restrictions on short-term rentals. But what was not overturned was the moratorium on the issuance of rental licenses. So although you could rent the property, you couldn't get a rental license if you didn't have one. Most recently here, it was just actually a couple weeks ago, I think, when it finally changed. The short-term rental piece, which was limit the length of stay, was overturned. You could not get a new rental license. They knew that the town was going to speak up again, that the voters were going to speak up, and there was going to be another referendum. So in like a total reversal, the city council voted to remove the restrictions on the issuance of the short-term rental licenses. So now, as we sit today, if you own a property in R1, you own a property in the mobile home district, you can rent your property out short-term, and you can obtain a short-term rental license.
As a big property rights guy, I think that's a good thing. But why I asked you that question of what was their train of thought, what were they thinking in terms of why they did that? I mean, I can appreciate if, you live there year round, you've lived there for a long time, and all of a sudden with this boom we've had over the last 10, 15 years, especially down here at the beach market, that all of a sudden you have new neighbors every 4 days, right? Turnover, it could be loud, parties, trash, not necessarily vandalism, but just everything that goes with that in a quiet neighborhood. I see their point in that. But I mean, ultimately, you live in a resort community. People want a vacation. We have a very attractive spot down here for that. So I'd probably lean more on the property rights,
Right.
On that. I'm going to let you don't have to give your opinion on that.
I'm happy to. I mean, I 100% agree. As a real estate broker, I think that property rights are extremely important. I think the town of Ocean City was built on vacations. I don't 100% buy the fact that it was just to preserve the quality of life. I think there's a lot of money in short-term rentals, and there's obviously the hotels that are competing with short-term rentals. Right. So there's a lot of moving parts there. I think it's a good thing where we sit today. Is the debate over? I doubt it. I get a feeling that it'll be continued to be something that's talked about. I can remember back to like 2016 when this chatter started. So it wasn't necessarily just COVID that brought this on. I think there's other ways to regulate it. I think, you let people do what they want with their property, but, you could put restrictions in that are from safety standpoint, like how many people can be in the property. Right. There's licensing, there's inspections that can be done and possibly enforcement when it comes to what we already have in place, the noise ordinance. Right. Ocean City's always had noise ordinance. So if it's getting too loud, well, then you go after the noise ordinance. They're in violation of that. But I don't buy the removal of your property rights. Right.
Especially if you bought it as a rental and all of a sudden this comes along. Mm-hmm. I mean, there had to be some litigation lined up.
Oh, absolutely.
On that, and that's definitely probably not what the city wants.
Right.
On that. So let's go down that rental or investment property direction. So most of our clients, if it's not a primary sale, they're saying, okay, I want to buy this rental property. And we know the numbers. We're seeing what their goals are. How much can they hold if it's not going to be all cash and it's going to be in debt? What's the biggest mistake or something that people don't realize when they're going in, looking at a property and saying, I want to buy an investment property? What mistakes are they making in terms of price, area, or just general expectations when they're coming to you?
Great question. I think a lot of it's expectations. You have to be, as an agent, we always try to set the expectations or understand their expectations, from the beginning. That's the most important piece. And then we will take the market as to what's feasible and match that up with their expectations to the best of our abilities. So I think having, being educated as to what your expectation should be,
Right.
is probably the most important piece.
Now, that's also true when selling their primary, a house that someone may have lived in for 10, 20, 30 years, put sweat equity into it, raised a family. Now, all of a sudden, it comes time to list. Generally, probably ourselves included, have a bias as to what this home is worth.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the market of what it's really worth, right? What someone's willing to pay for that. How do you handle that with a client who comes in and they're just way off in terms of overinflating what they think they can get for the home?
Right. Well, we're going to have a conversation. I mean, every seller, including ourselves, we've got the heavy duty nails, right? We don't have the regular nails. We got the heavy duty nails over there. And I get that, right? The sweat equity, 30 years, there's emotion that comes into it, as well. But, when I sit down with a client, I like to look at it from all angles, right? I typically say four different things we need to look at when we're pricing or trying to determine a price for your home. I like to look at it as, what does the public see? So when you put your house on the market and a buyer's evaluating, what do they see? Where are they getting their information as to what the value might be? And a lot of times it's these national sites. It's Zillow, it's Redfin, it's Realtor.com, it's my website, Sotheby's, where they can get information as to what the property might be worth, right? So that's the buyer's expectation. Then I like to look at it as, what does the bank think your home's worth, right? So if you're going to sell your home and anybody's going to get financing, they're going to have to get an appraisal, right? So we want to look at, what is the appraiser going to think of your home, your condition, your location, the improvements you made, and their opinion of value as to that specific day. Then I like to look at, after doing this for almost 24 years, what can I sell? Knowing the street, you walk in the streets, helping buyers and sellers, knowing the market, what can I honestly, generate for your home, right? So there's three different values there. But the most important piece to me, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is, what are your goals? When do you need this home sold, right? Is this something that has to happen in the next couple of weeks? Is this something where you've got time to speculate? The more time we have, the more speculation we can add into the price, because we can test things along the way. So, that's how we approach it. But really the most important piece is, what are their goals? What do they want to accomplish? And then, I'm priding myself on this, is I'm going to be very honest with them. We can try a high number. I'm not afraid of hitting records and doing what we can to break those records. But if the signs, if we go on the market at a higher number and the signs are that the value is, we're not giving them any showings as we need, or the feedback is not what we're looking for, I'm going to be honest with them and give them the feedback that we're seeing from the market. And then they can make decisions as to, what they want to do from that point.
Right. Well, the numbers don't lie. The information is what it is. And we say that often. Right. A client comes in and, hey, I want to retire on X amount of income a month, and this is what we have, and this is our debt. The numbers either work or they don't. And that's our job our role to deliver. This is what you can reasonably pull. So different, I imagine, greatly though, when it comes to a home, because of all that history and emotion.
You hit the nail on the head.
With that on that. So you talked about, we got the heavy duty nails over here. So you can read a ton of articles, watch a ton of videos online, and the headline will be, what upgrades add value to your house? Which upgrades decrease the value of your house, or you don't get out of? The one I hear often is a pool. And, I had this conversation with my wife when we put one in, and, people were saying, you're not going to get your money back. For me, I'm okay. Whatever I don't get back out of that, or anything out of it, the enjoyment for my family, I place a very, very high value on. And I think that's what people forget when they look at certain things, and certainly upgrades, that that's something you want and are going to enjoy. Then the value comes from what you and your family get out of that, not necessarily what you get on the back end when you sell it. However, here I'm specifically talking about, I'm thinking about selling my house. I'm going to go ahead and upgrade this because I think I can list it for $50,000 more with this $10,000 upgrade. What are key things out there, or things that stand out on upgrades when sell?
Right. I think it's going to depend, what the structure is. Is it a house? Is it a condo? If it's a condo, And it's also going to depend on the budget and timing.
Right.
If somebody's coming to me today and they want to, they ideally would like to sell this spring, but they want to maximize their return, right? The two things I would suggest they do, say it's a condo and we're trying to get on the market and sell it in time for the spring, I would say it's flooring and paint. Those are the two. So new flooring, LVP flooring, and painting it are going to be the two items that are probably lesser expensive and will have the greatest return, and can be done quickly.
Right.
Right. If it's more of a single family home, I think sometimes the things that people forget is you can have a beautiful home that has got great upgrades on the inside, but if your roof is appearing or starting to get to the point where it's at the end of its useful life, that's a big ticket item. So roof, air conditioning, those mechanicals are really important that sometimes get overlooked. The biggest bang is probably a kitchen. If you've got a really nice kitchen in a lot of these properties, that's going to be the focal point and is usually a pretty good investment all in all. A pool, I'm a pool guy too. That was the first thing we did when we purchased our most recent home. Is my wife wanted a pool, and we put a lot of money in the backyard, and it's all about the family and the kids. And I probably won't get that back, but in turn, if you've got a luxury home, a very large home in a great location, and it doesn't have a pool, it can sometimes hold you back. That could be one of those elements that the ultra luxury person just they need to have that pool, and
right.
if it doesn't, that could negatively affect you.
Right, because they're going to start quoting immediately. All right, this price plus,
right.
I need X amount of dollars to put the pool in, and what's the wait list like to get in? Am I looking
it's
at
not
a year,
happening
2
before
years?
this summer.
Not happening at all. I think when we put ours in 2021 or 22, I remember talking to the owner, and I asked him, I said, "Are you busy right now?" He said, "We can't keep up." He said, "Even if I doubled my workforce, I could not keep up with the demand." And I don't think that's changed much. COVID did a lot for that. When people were kind of trapped at home, that
right.
demand just went through the roof. But I think it's worth it. I love it. So I don't have to sit in traffic, go to the beach.
Right.
My wife would love to, but I'm like, hey, we got the pool. So with those buyers, you talked a little bit about interest rates affecting. Are you seeing more cash buyers, a lot of financing, or is it just small blips on the average, like always?
Yeah, I think in the primary housing market, where people are not retired, there's still a lot of financing. That's the majority of what we're seeing is primary housing market. They're still working. They've got families locally, and they're making a move, whether it's moving up a little bit, from the townhome to the larger home, or the larger home to even a bigger home. Like those folks are definitely financing. And so that's where interest rates definitely come into play a little bit more. And, I think some of them they've got pent up demand because they're just ready to get out of the smaller house and they want something bigger.
Right.
So now that rates have gotten below that 6% or right around 6%, a lot of times they're feeling that's enough to make them move, right? The Delaware single family home market, we see a lot of cash. Like folks who are looking to retire, or it's going to be a second home. There's definitely a lot of cash there. Ocean City, second home condo, it's 50-50. It seems like it's a pretty good mix.
What is the down payment now on a condo in Ocean City? The requirement, is it 25, 30?
No, you can. There's ways of doing it where you can structure it for less. There's a couple loan officers out there, a couple mortgage companies that have a 10% down product, although we don't see it as much as we used to. But the majority of folks are putting down 20%. Sometimes they might piggyback that. A lot of people have equity right now. So the play that we're seeing a lot of people do is they'll pull equity off of their primary. So they might take 10, 20% off of their primary since there is so much equity there, and then do a mortgage for 80% there. So essentially it's 100% financing, but it's coming from two different properties.
Gotcha. What, with that condo market, where's the hot spot? Where should people be buying? Or let me say it this way. Where's the most demand right now in terms of from the top at the Fenwick line, Delaware line, and Fenwick on down to the inlet?
Right.
Where do people want to be?
Depends on them. right? It's funny. I get asked that a lot.
I'm a North Ocean City guy.
Well, we'll touch on that in a second because I think there is some trends there, but it just depends on what they're used to. I always ask. One of the first things I ask is like, where do you typically vacation when you come to Ocean City? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm always on the boardwalk, right? They're boardwalk people. They don't even know anything exists north of the boardwalk. And then you get others that are no, we're Bayside. We love Midtown. But if there's a hot spot that maybe is emerging. This I think is kind of unique, but North Ocean City, right, just south of Fenwick, mm-hmm. there's definitely a push for people who want to be in that location, and I'd classify that from say 136th Street to the Delaware line. It's 10 blocks, right? It's kind of Cane Woods, and some of that is that the Fenwick prices have gotten so high.
It's insane. Fenwick to Bethany is just it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
Same beach.
Yeah.
It's just,
But so they've gotten so high that some people feel it's untouchable, where they can come into Ocean City at 146th Street and it seems like a bargain.
With higher taxes.
Even with higher taxes. Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of this. Well, my wife and we own a property up on Cane Stable Road, which is, I mean, literally just south of the Delaware line. And that one we purchased as an investment property a number of years ago. But my wife and we looked in Fenwick, and, when you're $1.5 million for a single family home on a canal, or I could come into Ocean City and I was at $450 for a 3-bedroom on the water here. It just to me, it made more sense.
And that's all due to Delaware's real estate tax, mostly attributable to that.
Yeah, I mean, Delaware is so tax advantageous to so many folks. Very low real estate taxes, but also the other thing that you see in Fenwick and in South Bethany and Bethany is less of the compartmentalization. We don't have as many condos in those areas, so you're owning the ground. There are more single family homes, and so that elevates the price.
So, if living in Sussex County, growing up there, right now it feels like, and for a while, if there's a blade of grass, they'll build on it, especially single-family home developments. We don't see that as much in Worcester County.
Right.
What would it take, or what would have to happen for that same boom that's in Sussex County to occur in Worcester County, besides us running out of space in Sussex County to build?
Right. Infrastructure. Hands down, the number one reason we don't see that here is we do not have water and sewer. It's just we have so much more septic well, and the way the regulation is in Worcester County, it makes it very difficult to build out in the county. You need almost 2 acres of land at this point to be able to really build anything that's not tied to water and sewer. So I mean that's good and bad. You're going to see less growth, less development, but it might keep prices higher.
Right.
Just because there's less supply.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword. Like I said, we'll build on a blade of grass in Sussex County right now. Growing up there, anything under 5 acres on a home site was like, oh, you don't have much land. And now it's 3 houses per acre everywhere. Right. You take a back road, there's a new development every week. And I always say, it's been great for business in every aspect, every industry, but also you could take every builder out of Sussex County right now. The demand's not leaving. Mm-hmm. It's huge, and it's going to be met by someone out there. And it's funny to hear you say, Worcester County not having that necessary infrastructure. We feel that in Sussex County for sure, with doctors, hospitals, everything.
Right.
It's just such an influx from Baltimore, Philadelphia, anything in New Jersey, New York, with people retiring, which is, a good thing. It's been great for our business. It's been great for a lot of industries. But it does have some drawbacks to it.
Yeah. Traffic, I hear, we sell both in Maryland and Delaware. And, it's funny when we first came here, right? We're come here. I didn't grow up here like you did, but I remember I felt like I didn't want to, when I was looking for a spot to be, I wanted to be a surfer and I wanted, to live that beach lifestyle. And looking at Rehoboth and Dewey and Bethany and Fenwick, I just felt like it was so sleepy. Like I didn't want to be there. I want to be down in Ocean City where the action was. And it's kind of flipped. Mm-hmm. If you drive on Route 1 in, Rehoboth, Lewis, and the traffic, there's a lot of traffic there. I get a little dizzy because there's so much commercial. But that's good if you're looking to have grocery stores and in doctor's
Different restaurant
offices.
every
Yeah.
night of the month.
There's something to do there where it's kind of flipped now in Ocean City, as you know, in the wintertime, we're kind of sleepy. There's not as much going on.
I'll admit, I'm a little jealous of that sometimes. So I always say, growing up, I'm going to date myself here, but let's say mid 90s, if I'm driving down Coastal Highway in Rehoboth in the wintertime, it's blinking lights.
Yeah.
Now on a Tuesday in February, it's July 4th traffic from that time. It's just, it's crazy to see all that. But, the attractability or the attraction to that is that beach lifestyle, and we don't hold a monopoly on that. People want that and are retiring or working remote, and we've seen the boom and we've had the benefits from it.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be drawbacks when it comes to all of that development. But for the most part, people have benefited from that growth in the area. So depending, I guess, on who you ask and what they want to admit to benefiting from. But I think
what are their goals? Yeah,
goals?
If they're moving to the beach, there's going to be certain things that come along with it.
They do,
right?
Yeah.
And if it's not for you, then I've seen some people leave. I've seen some people that tried it and then decided to go back home, wherever that is. So. But to answer your question, though, I think Worcester County could definitely have the space to grow.
Mm-hmm.
We've got lots of land. It's just that we would need to see regulations change a little bit to allow better infrastructure when it comes to water and sewer. That would be key.
There's a sprinkler requirement.
Yeah.
So I remember when that came on, or at least finding out about it, that price is that. What's a mid-level cost on a single family home now? It changes so much. But if you're in that, let's say $300,000 to $500,000 subdivision on single family homes, and now all of a sudden you got to put a sprinkler system in, which great. Like the house catches on fire. The intention is we want to save everyone in there. It's a great thing, but that also adds cost, pushes it up for that developer. Is it profitable to come in and do it? It's hard on that. Your margins aren't that much. The spread's not that much. So I agree. I think that's part of the reason on it. But what's the solution? I mean, I can see the political points on TV now. Well, you want people to burn up, because you don't want sprinklers. But that's how politics works, I guess.
Yeah.
On that. So be interesting to see the next 5 to 10 on as Sussex County kind of reaches its max, if that spreads down here and promotes change and growth in that single family development. Like you said, there's a ton of land.
Yeah.
Ton.
Yeah, we've got a ton of land, but a lot of regulation.
Yeah. Well, I know for us in Sussex County, I mean, we have a ton of farmland still, but you take a 4th, 5th generation farmer, someone comes along and offers you, if you have land near the beach at $150,000, $200,000 an acre, and you can keep 50 acres for your family.
Right.
You're talking about legacy for generations.
Changes everything.
And I have some friends that will never sell no matter what. They love their heritage as farmers, getting up, working hard, working all day and night, and do that. And they'll never sell. And I'm good with that too.
Yeah. Good
with that too. But it gets harder and harder as you see that generation pass and they don't really grow up in that culture.
Yeah.
Of that. So, so if I'm a home buyer or an investment buyer, and I'm thinking in the next, let's say 6 to 12 months, I want to buy something, what should I be doing now to prepare for that?
Yeah, it starts with investigation. I think the natural flow is you start looking at areas that you like. Where do you see yourself? What do you want your lifestyle to look like when you do buy? I'm sorry, did you say first time home buyer or just in general?
Could be. For our area, I think that's great because you can have the opportunity to come down here and stay and figure out what neighborhood.
Yeah. So they're at an advantage there. If there are, anybody who's local, right, and they already live here and they're looking to buy another property, they have the advantage of knowing the areas a little bit and being able to go drive past the house and kind of check out the areas. But I think it starts with, setting your goals. Where do you want to be? How much do you want to spend? What do you feel comfortable in as far as a price point goes? And then start thinking, like if you need the logistics to sell one to buy another, I think you got to get connected with an agent early, try to figure out what's the value of the one you're selling. What do you need to do to prep that home to get it ready for sale? And what's the timing going to be? What's the absolute best time that you can, make that work? So it's investigation. I think that's investigation, education.
What is the best time to sell a property here? And I've heard you say this answer before as we've had clients that you've taken care of.
When it matches up with your goals. All right. When it depends what you want to accomplish. There's some seasonality, and this is one thing that's changed a little bit. A couple of years ago, there was no seasonality in our market. It was just going wide open for a long period of time. So the seasonality was taken out of it. But I mean, in general, the two busiest times are the spring market, which is a little bit longer, and followed by the fall market. Those are the two busiest times when we see transactions and properties close. Now, we stay busy year round. The spring market, some years it starts in January, some years it pushes all the way, past Easter and even almost into like early June. The fall market's a much shorter window. The fall market a lot of times is like when we get past Labor Day, and we see a few more homes hit the market. That'll run, pretty strong through the end of October, and then it has a tendency to slow down a little bit.
So starting this January, well, in February and now March, we've seen a ton of snow.
Yeah.
Not typical for the past decade.
Right.
Has that affected anything?
Absolutely. And it's not just here. It's pretty much nationwide. If you look at the national numbers, macro numbers, you'll see that the home sales were down in January. But a lot of that's not based on, the market. It's more just it's weather. People could not get out. And so we're starting to see it kick in now. Locally here in the resort markets, we feel like the spring market's starting to really kick in just the last couple of weeks. So it's definitely weather dependent. But yeah, I mean, we actually got a little pop like right between Christmas and New Year this year, where it was like really busy all of a sudden. People kind of came back to the beach, and then with the weather, it slowed down for an extended period of time.
So I've been along with you here with clients, either setting a record on properties or looking at some unique listings. What's the most unique deal that you've ever done? The type of property it was, or just all the dynamics that went along with it?
Yeah, there's a lot. My wife and I always talk about that one's going to be in our coffee table book one day, right? You talk about the stories as to interesting things that pop up in a transaction. But as far as like unique properties, I sold one last year that you and I actually had chatted about, and it's not in my normal wheelhouse. It wasn't here in Worcester County, it wasn't Sussex County, but it was a large parcel, 83 acres over in Crisfield, of all places. I mean, and direct bayfront, Tangier Sound, like that area with due westerly exposure with unbelievable sunsets. But it was 83 acres. It was this older cottage that had a lot of history. That sat on about an acre site, and then you had some uplands behind it. It was just like a little piece of heaven.
I remember looking at that. That was a beautiful, beautiful property. I just pictured, family weekends or family weeks there with generations, and you're contained to yourself, almost to your own island, essentially, out there with your own beach. That was a beautiful property.
It's a compound. It's like your own little place to get away to. And the unique thing about that was it was an Airbnb. Those folks had it as an Airbnb. So from an investment standpoint, I mean, it did really, really well, because there was much competition in Crisfield for Airbnbs.
That's an area I feel has just got a lot of potential. The question is when.
Right. Yeah. I think we've been saying it for a while.
Yeah. Gosh, it's just, yeah. I mean, that's a whole other podcast on what would have to happen for that area to just become more desirable on vacations and commercially with restaurants and things like that. But there's a younger crowd in there involved now. And I hear from various friends and clients that have property there that they are really trying to make a push for that in the restaurant market, in festivals. And I believe they had a music festival there recently and trying to make it an annual thing. So I'd love to see that area. And I don't mean see that area completely developed and all nature gone.
Right.
But it's beautiful down there. We'd love to be able to enjoy that and have places to go eat and things to do and all of that. So awesome. That property was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Trying to get me to buy that.
I thought we talked about it.
So let me ask you this, Ryan, and I know the answer, so I want you to share it on here, but what do you and Christy love about the real estate business and what you do with clients?
Yeah, I mean, there's, I think any of us who are in business for ourselves, I mean, there's going to be days that are long, all right? That you scratch your head a little bit and wonder why you're doing what you're doing. But I like helping clients. And that's why I'm still in sales and not just managing, the company, is because ever since the beginning, I really liked hearing people's stories, right? What did they do? What businesses did they own that allowed them to get to where they are? Maybe it wasn't the business. Maybe it wasn't making a lot of money. How did they invest and save over time, the compounding effect, to now allow them to purchase, property at the beach and achieve their dreams?
Mhm.
I love those stories. And so that's still true today. I mean, from a real estate standpoint, we love the people's stories. The difference between commercial and residential so much is the emotion, right? It is the story. And that's what is still most important to me. And that's why I get up every day to figure out the next story I'm going to hear and how I can help them achieve their goals, whatever it might be. And I get in from first-time home buyers buying their first place to the other end, which you and I are involved in, when they got to scale back. Maybe they have a loved one that's passed and they got to change things up. So I see it. It's like the circle of life.
Right.
And that's probably what gets me out of bed, keeps me excited. And I like to win, right? I like, you're an athlete. I've been an athlete. My kids are athletes. Our kids are athletes. And I like to win. And if I can help my clients achieve their goals and actually win when it comes to negotiation, that still gets me going.
Oh, that's awesome. Got me pumped up.
All right, let's go.
Let me get my real estate license. Let's go sell.
Right. You're more than welcome to join us. You'd be fantastic at it.
I feel like I research it every day. Well, I mean, we get so many questions. Obviously I'm researching it from a level not at you guys. I'm coming to you when I've got a general idea on what our clients are looking for. Can they afford it? Does it fit into their plan? But I like to stay familiar too. I don't want them to throw something out of the blue and I have no idea about the area, what prices. I want to buy a townhome and we got $200,000 to invest and we don't want a mortgage. Okay, well, we're not looking downtown Ocean City or along the boardwalk or anything like that. I need to be familiar with general prices on everything and what it's going for. You mentioned athlete. So this isn't the running podcast, although
Right.
you have a podcast on running. What's the streak at?
I believe we're at 2,182 days as of today.
Of running every single day,
Right.
at least what?
A mile.
Mile.
Yeah. It's that has changed, a little bit over time. But yeah, it's got to be at least a mile.
What's the math on that? How many years is that?
So it's going to be 6 on March 14th.
Congrats on that.
Yeah, thanks.
That is dedication. I mean, no matter the distance, if it takes you, run a mile in 7 minutes or 15 minutes, there's going to be days where it slips your mind and you're turning in for the night and you're like, oh, I didn't run today. I've got to get up and go do it. And you got to do it. That takes discipline.
Mhm.
And for those of you that don't know, this is the person that inspired me to get into ultra running. I saw Ryan out there running every day. I'm like, I can do that. Let me go run a mile. I ran that first mile and barely made it. Next thing I knew, it's like, let's just run 100. And we got into it.
Right.
And we ended up running 100 at a
But
time.
you took it to the next level.
Well, I'm 0 or 100 in just about everything. So that's great. That streak is that long. I hesitate to ask this, but what's your intentions there on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's become automatic at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The intentions in the beginning was if we go back to the beginning of this podcast, we talk about 6 years with Atlantic Shore Sotheby's International Realty, 6 years since COVID, and that's where it started. I was a runner before that, and I had done some other streaks, but I on March 14th of 2020, I'm like, I'm going to go run. And, because the world was shutting down, owning a business with 4 kids and trying to figure out, with a team of agents and staff, like, how are we going to support these guys when the world is shutting down, right? So it was kind of a little bit out of like, I need to have a release. And so it started with the release, which then, allowed me to clear my mind, to get in my own head, to listen to podcasts, to grow, which turned into a couple marathons. I did 5 marathons, and to today. I think why it still exists is I know for me to be my best, every morning I got to shake it out. Like I got to get the blood flowing.
Right.
You know, you're a little bit selfish before you can be selfless, right? And that's not my quote. There's another gentleman out there who says it every day. But it's true. It's like you got to take care of yourself a little bit in the morning, clear your mind, get the blood flowing, so then you can go out and kind of be your best for everybody else,
Including your family.
right? Right, and it's a lot of it. You know, is it's kind of the big why, right? But so that's why it continues on. You mentioned like going into bed and thinking I didn't get it done. I don't want that to be the case. So it's really got to be like first thing in the morning.
I'm a first thing in the morning guy too. And my training, I haven't run a race now in a year and a half. And I'm generally only going to run one if someone's running their first 100, waiting for that call from you. I get back in it. But I transitioned in the fall to, I need to move every day.
Yeah.
I want to feel good and I need to do it in the morning. And that's what I do. So I don't necessarily need to go out, put in 10 to 20 miles. Sometimes the time's just not there. I need to go move. I need to go stretch. And that's how I view training. And it's been great. I have a little mini streak. It's nowhere close to what your numbers are.
So yeah, where are you at?
It's like 160 something of moving every day somehow, some way. And some days that could be a 10-mile run. It could be a 2-mile run with, some weightlifting, with the sauna. It could be I'm playing basketball or lacrosse with my boy or my daughter for, 30 minutes. I just want to move every day.
Right.
It's like you said, I feel much better. My mind is clear. I can be a better leader here. I can serve everyone better. I can serve my family better, everyone on this team when that's taken care of first thing in the morning. And some days you just don't feel like doing it, but I just do it anyway. And I've never had a time where that was the case. I didn't feel better after.
Right.
100%. So I will say, though, I am getting up at 4, done training about 5:15, 5:30. I come in, do my devotionals, read the Bible, journal, cook breakfast. And if I can lay down at 6, I can get about a 45-minute nap. My daughter comes in and wakes me up, and that 45 minutes feels like 3 hours. It's great. And that's kind of my routine right now. And I like it. I needed to get some, it's going to sound strange, but just pressure off of running race after race. I felt like I was always having to run. I have to get this training run in. And I started to resent it. I wasn't enjoying it. Not that training is fun, right? When you're working up to something like that, it should be hard. It should be a struggle, but it felt more of an obligation. And I didn't know which way to take it. And I just took a step back and say, hey, let's just be healthy. Let's move. That's it. And I've enjoyed it.
Right. I think that's very interesting of you. And I think that it shows your adaptability. I think for me, as I've been on this, the journey of running every day, one thing I'm more open to now is realizing that it doesn't have to look the same all the time, right? You can adapt and there's different seasons, right? So in the beginning, if I was running a minimum of 3.1 miles, so I can get a 5K in every single day, that then transitioned into training for marathons and going longer distance. And fast forward to today, it's not necessarily about going longer, but I've supplemented with working out, trying to build muscle, to do like, little and running shorter, like getting on a treadmill and actually just doing a mile run as fast as I can, getting into the 6s and changing it up. And I think that's, yeah, it's amazing. I can still be I'm a little sore, but, and I think that's the reason I want to see if I can still do that. Right. But I think that's, as I'm getting older and we're both getting a little bit older, I'm trying to be less rigid and being more open-minded to, hey, this works for this season. Maybe next season it's going to require a different version of me.
100%. I've had a lot of times, let's say the 4 o'clock didn't work. And so I've got whatever the schedule was, I was away traveling and I'm working out in late afternoon, early evening, just starting or halfway through, and Landon comes in the garage or Addie does and says, hey, do you want to shoot some basketball? You want to play a game of pig or horse, and or play one-on-one? Or Addie, says, hey, you want to play some lacrosse, or can I train? Every time that answer is yes, I will stop that workout. 2 years ago, if I'm on a workup and they ask that, I know I have to get that. And that's such a hard decision. And A couple times I chose, I've got to go on this run.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's just a non-negotiable for me now. Kids first.
Right.
And I can't ever get that time back. I run a marathon when I'm 80 or something like that.
There you go.
Right.
50 states. Right? Hit one every state.
Oh, could. I'd rather just run 50 of them at once and get it all done.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
Well, listen, Ryan, we appreciate you coming on. As I always say, we appreciate what you do for us, for our clients, your knowledge, your commitment, you and Christy, on your craft and your profession, is just second to none. And how you treat our clients, is amazing. And when we refer clients to you, we have full confidence that they're going to be treated well, and we're sending them to the best. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like you said, we've known each other for a long time, and started as a friendship, and being able to work together on some of these deals to help each other's clients. It's been an honor. So thank you.
Awesome. And we'll put Ryan's information in the podcast bio there, where we'll link to your website and contact info for that. So appreciate you coming on, and thank you everybody for joining us again on the Clarity Corner.